Did you often feel a tug, a struggle between your Polynesian side and your European Western side?
Even though my brain, my thinking brain is been developed to be able to absorb the European, the Western, well, but I go by my heart. My heart speaks, yeah, not my brain. My heart tells me.
Johnny Frisbie has lived a storied life as a writer, television personality, and nurturer across cultures throughout the South Pacific, New Zealand, Hawaii, and Japan. She grew up in a tiny place called Puka-Puka. Florence Johnny Frisbie, next on Long Story Short.
Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox is Hawaii's first weekly television program produced and broadcast in high definition.
Aloha mai kako, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Florence Johnny Frisbie of Honolulu was born to a native Puka-Pukan mother and an American father in Tahiti. Her family moved from island to island frequently in the South Pacific. As a teenager, Johnny wrote and published Miss Ulysses from Puka-Puka, an autobiography of her journeys across the South Pacific. Puka-Puka is an atoll in the Cook Islands. After the death of her father, Johnny, aged 16, and 3 siblings were orphaned, separated, and raised in different families in New Zealand and Hawaii. Johnny was taken in by the Engel family of Kailua, Windward Oahu, and enrolled in high school. She hadn't had much formal education.
So your life took you to, you went to Roosevelt High School, where you did so well that did you get a scholarship to Punahou?
Yes, yeah, I got a scholarship to Punahou.
and
2 years. Yeah.
Which is amazing to do so well.
I know, it surprised me. Yeah, but then I was thinking about it. I was very, very serious about each subject. When I go, say, biology, English, I was serious, I was keen, and after each class I would go to the teacher to please explain what I didn't understand. There was a lot, because it's transforming a thinking in Polynesian to English understanding of the subject.
Yeah, different tools, everything was different.
So I would always go, and the teachers were always so good, and they would explain to me, and so go home, and then I was able to do my homework.
Your outdoor childhood and all the curiosity and exploration and resilience, how did that translate when you then started living more suburban lifestyle, more more crowded places?
It was well, I don't know that I have actually been in that kind of lifestyle very much, but I in order for me to survive and not totally give up who I am, my nature, I found ways. I found ways to go maybe in the bush, or to have plants that I can talk to or nurture, but and never to be in concrete, blocks like that. But I find it's a survival instinct, and I've been very careful not to lose, to lose me, who I am.
Johnny Frisbie adapted quickly to life in Hawaii and the Western style of education. After graduating from Punahou School, Johnny set her sights on a career in nursing. However, an old family friend set her on a new journey.
I was accepted to Queen's. I applied, and I was going to start, and then James Michener, who was kind of looking after me at the time, said, "No, you're going to go overseas. You need to expand your vision of the world." He said, "You're going to go either to the Far East," he said, "or Europe." And he said, "I'll get you a job." So immediately received a letter from the Army that I had a job in Tokyo. So get ready, 2 weeks later, I was off to Japan.
What did you do in Tokyo?
I worked for the Army and was secretary to one of the, but why did we go there?
Well, I wonder. Actually, I'm picturing you in Tokyo after a lifetime living on Pacific Islands, and it doesn't compute. How did you enjoy that?
Loved it, and there weren't many Polynesians, and the Japanese were fascinated with they just used to stare, and those who could speak English said, "Where are you from?" And I would explain, but they didn't know. A lot of them didn't know. Made lots of good friends. Yeah, wonderful people.
But only stayed 2 years?
2 years, yeah. That was a contract. Yeah.
And what was next?
Oh, and then I came back to Hawaii, and my sister introduced me to Carl, who was the Navy, was getting ready to go to Japan to film the military club nightclubs for his television program. And so my sister said, "Oh, my sister just come back from Japan. I'll have you meet her and find out things about where you're going." So that's how it happened.
The man to whom Johnny Frisbie was introduced turned out to be Carl Hebenstreit, also known as Kini Popo, a popular Honolulu radio DJ and the first on-air personality for KGMB TV's inaugural 1952 broadcast.
You married a man who was very well known in Hawaii. Kini Popo is what everyone called him. Carl Hebenstreit, a radio and TV personality. And I think you mentioned that you could talk to him about writing the way you could your dad.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he had an amazing command of the English language. And so he was very helpful with my second book. My second book when I was still learning the English language, still reading and studying, grammar and all that. But he was a beautiful person.
And with him, you had 4 children.
Yes.
In New Zealand. Another part of Pacifica.
They grew up in New Zealand. Yeah, 2 were born here. Ropati and Carla were born here, and Jaume was born in the Cook Islands, and Sterling was born in New Zealand. Yes.
And then you stayed for a bit.
I stayed on.
Years.
When Carl returned to Hawaii, I stayed on. 30 years I was there. When the last of my kids left, and I decided then, time to move on.
And you are still close to him, even though you're no longer married.
Oh, we're very close now. Yes, he and Jaume meet at least once a week, and I'm invited. If I'm not invited, I invite myself. No problem. And I love his wife, Christine. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful friend.
In 1948, Johnny Frisbie became the first Polynesian female published author with her autobiographical book, Miss Ulysses from Puka-Puka. And while living in Hawaii during the 1950s, she was one of the first to turn heads and raise a few eyebrows with her choice of swimwear.
There was a time on Waikiki Beach when no one wore bikinis. And then you came along. You're credited with being the first?
Yeah. There was a Tahitian girl too who wore the bikini, and gave me courage. Yeah, gave me courage. But the thing that I can claim fame for was that I wore a bathing suit when I was 6 months pregnant and onwards. Okay, that was in 1957. That was unheard of, I was very proud of that.
And how did you come to be one of the first 2 women to wear a bikini? How did that happen?
Well, I didn't think it was an issue. It was just natural. We grew up half naked and naked. We go swimming naked. The girls and the boys over there, the girls there, we quickly take off our dress. We didn't have panties or bra. Take off and put it on the bush and run down, into lagoon. And it's no big deal. So I just grew up not thinking about shame or rules, restrictions. To this day, I have to be very careful I don't upset people because of my quickness to do what's natural.
After the birth of her second child, Johnny Frisbie planted roots in New Zealand. She says there were a number of Puka-Pukans living there, and she wanted her children to experience their cultural heritage. In 1976, Johnny made her debut as a television personality and had a chance to share her perspectives on life with New Zealand viewers.
Television began in the city where we lived, Dunedin, which is south, on the South Island of New Zealand. An Australian producer was there, and he come from Australia, and he had worked on a program called Beauty and the Beast in Australia, and he wanted to start one for New Zealand viewers, and so he asked me. He wanted someone other than all European. There were 4 panelists, and so he asked me if I would, and I said yes, sure, you know. So the program was about a male presenter and 2 women on the side, and he would read the letter, a letter from viewers from all over, from solo mothers, grandmothers, you know, teenagers needing help. And so he would read the letter and would turn and said, "Yeah, Johnny, what do you think of that?" You know, we were not to give our advice, but to give our opinion. You know, that was there. But my viewpoint was very different to the other 3, so it was always very different to every letter. There's never one that we agree on.
So, for example, can you give an example?
A mother, a solo mother who is alone with their baby, and wanted to know whether what to do with the baby. She can't cope. She had very little money, and the father is just ignoring her. What do you do? And so my reply was, "Do you have family? You know, can you go to your mother or father or auntie, your distant relative?" You know, this is kind of the village, the clan type reply. I said, you know, have courage, even though they might not be happy with you for having this baby without a father. You know, just seek their help, find out, you know, and make amends in the best way. Yeah. So
what did the others say?
They would say, "Oh well, you did what you did. You're paying for it," kind of that kind of thing.
Thanks for the advice or the opinion. Oh. So that went on for quite. You did that
10 years. 10 years. 5 days a week. Yeah. So.
And did you have fans writing you about how they really liked your advice?
Yeah, I was very the Polynesian Pacific Island community were very, very grateful. They were very proud of the fact that they had someone on television, you know, and speaking on all our behalf. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Were you controversial too?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And you don't mind? Not at all, right?
Well, it's the truth as I understand it, and and also fairness. You know, I mean, we all think differently. You know, different cultures, different thoughts and feelings are all different, and I'm not about to cow down to what is supposed to be the correct, you know, way to think and feel and all that, you know.
And then there was Pacifica. Mm-hmm. What's that?
Pacifica is a woman, an organization that Patty Walker, a very dear friend, and 4 other women and I started. Patty and I were on the New Zealand Maori and South Pacific Arts Council, and while at one of the meetings we thought, why don't we create a women's or Pacific Island women's organization to help the women who were lost, and those who would like to be a nurse but don't know how to do where to go and how to get it moving, and get Pacific Island children, kids, students who are doing well at school to further their education, get a scholarship for them or guide them. But yeah, it helped just it was such a successful program for Pacific Island, especially the women. You know, stand tall. You know, have confidence. You know, go back to school. You know, I mean, they come from the small islands, 8th grade, and then that's it. And so many of them entered college, you know, and just moved on, become professors and doctors, nurses. You know.
In 2015, Johnny Frisbie returned to her home atoll of Puka-Puka in the Cook Islands after being away for over 50 years. She was reunited with her eldest brother, Charlie Frisbie, given away at birth to his grand aunt, and he'd become the oldest living Puka-Pukan.
So, after many, many years away, you went back to Puka-Puka to see your brother.
Yeah, and to film a documentary called Homecoming, and we flew from Honolulu. The producer director of the film, Hema. We flew to New Zealand and then to Rarotonga, and we waited there for a boat to sail to Puka-Puka, and it doesn't happen often. And we were lucky because during that month of July, the Cook Islands was celebrating its 50th internal self-government from New Zealand, so they are no longer a protectorate of New Zealand. Okay, and so they had all the island people from the different congregated on Rarotonga to celebrate this great event. Lots of beautiful music, drumming, singing, dancing. It was just, the whole thing was just mind-boggling. And so we asked to board there, the boat that was to take them back, the Puka-Pukan back to Puka-Puka. And they said, yeah, come on board. So we did 5 days sailing. And every night, every day, there's music and drumming. The Puka-Pukans would just, you know, stay up all night, waiting to get home, playing the ukulele on both sides of the deck, you know, singing. It was beautiful.
What a great, 5 days of that?
Yes, 5 days of that.
That is a very difficult atoll to get to.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
No regularly scheduled boat or air.
No. And we had to charter a plane, eight-seater. We had to, or we would be stuck there for goodness knows how long. That way we were assured of getting back to Rarotonga.
Well, what was it like after that great sailing prelude? What was it like going back?
Well, it was so amazing. I fell into it as if I'd never left. Just totally into it. You know, and just walking on the reef, just on the beach, collecting shells and talking, you know, and the language came back very quickly, and grating coconut, peeling taro, and scaling fish and gutting fish, you know, just cooking it the way we used to in the old days. And it was just unbelievable. I just fell into it, and it made me wonder, gosh, have I been longing, homesick all these years, and I just kind of buried it somewhere, you know?
Did you want to stay?
No, I didn't, because I want to be with my family, with my kids, my grandchildren, in that sense. And, yeah, that's utmost to me.
But you could go home again. It was as if it was all the good that you remembered.
Oh, yes, and church, going to, you know, attending the church service with that beautiful singing, like chanting, you know. Oh, the harmony! I was moving, and I sat on the bench. Is it, do you call it bench? And the village where my mother comes from. I sat almost where she used to sit. Wow. makes you wonder why I ever left.
After living in New Zealand for 30 years, Johnny Frisbie returned to Hawaii to live with her daughter, Haumea Ho, widow of the late Hawaii entertainment icon, Don Ho.
Seems like you've lived a larger than life because, I mean, for example, your daughter is Haumea. She was married to Don Ho.
That's right. Yeah.
So I mean, that's another different. That's a different kind of culture. You know, the show business culture.
Yeah. That's why I came to Hawaii. She asked me to come and be with her when Don passed away, and that was very wonderful, wonderful to be with her. And also my sister was married to Adam West, Batman.
Batman.
Yes.
Well, you were a performer. I mean, you danced, you sang.
Yeah.
So that was just part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't a career.
You know, you continue to write, and I think when you write, it focuses. It makes you think maybe better. I mean, I just because you're involved in the exercise of putting things down that have to be true and authentic. What insights have you come to over your life as you look back?
I've been very lucky, delved a lot in philosophy, and so I want to make things honest too, and develop that aspect of my soul, my nature. And I'm very, very much into writing about my philosophy about anything and everything that comes to mind. And I'm discovering that I haven't really committed fully to what the majority of people think about some things and how they do it.
When people remember you in years to come, how do you want them to remember you? As nurturer?
Well, that's just me. I mean, I have no profession, I think what they see, what they've gotten out from me, if any, that's probably it. I have no label to say, you know, this is here. It's what they got from me, good or bad, I don't know. Yeah, hopefully some good things, yeah.
You mentioned your birth date, and that it means that you're, as we speak now, in 2017, you're approaching 85? I don't know what 85 looks like anymore because people are so healthy longer, but you don't seem like you're anywhere near 85. I'm sure you've been told that before.
I'll tell you a story. About a week and a half ago, I flew to California to see a friend, and his daughter, I've never met before, came to the airport to meet me. And I was waiting, and she was looking around for me, and finally she called me and she said, "Johnny, where are you?" I said, "I'm here." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to put my hand up, wave, and when you'll see me, come forward." And so I did, and she came over to me and she said, "Oh, I expected a gray-haired woman, lots of wrinkles." And she was yelling, "You don't have any wrinkles." It was so funny.
Well, how old do you feel?
I feel young. I'm exhilarated by things, excited about things, and I feel love. I feel love all the time. But physically, as of last year, when I was gardening at my son's place in Punaluu, I felt the physical change, that I wasn't able to, I'm crouching and weeding and I can't quickly stand up, I had to kind of, help myself get up like that. And I thought, no, this is not good, but, accept it.
And that was only last year, so
Yeah,
that's, people at age 30 are saying, my knee, it's killing me.
At the time of this conversation in March of 2017, Florence Johnny Frisbie was about to embark on yet another journey, a multi-week trip across the Pacific. Even in her mid-80s, it seems the odyssey of Miss Ulysses from Puka-Puka is not over yet. Mahalo to author Florence Johnny Frisbie of Honolulu for sharing your story with us. And thank you for joining us. For PBS Hawaii and Long Story Short, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Aloha a hui ho.
For audio and written transcripts of all episodes of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, visit pbshawaii.org. To download free podcasts of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, go to the Apple iTunes Store or visit pbshawaii.org.
Have you ever regretted saying too much?
Saying too much? No.
You've regretted saying too little?
No.
Do you not have many regrets? Because that would be that would be the best place to be in life, right? No regrets.
Yeah, there's a couple of things, but not much. No.